Yes, Chair, we're ready to start.
Yeah, we'll make a start then. Yeah, I'll put my glasses on. We'll try somebody's glasses, not mine. So someone's. Right. Good morning and welcome to the Education, Sport and Children's Services Committee, which has been conducted from the Chamber and remotely through Microsoft Teams. Firstly, I'd just like to apologise to the committee for not being present in the Chamber. Circumstances just haven't allowed it, and so I'm chairing from online. Okay, so apologies for that. Please ensure your microphones are off, and before we begin, I will ask the Reverend Hugh Stewart to lead us in prayer. The meeting is now being recorded. Thank you.
Ie gras for agus ulevianig, sin son gat o voldig in vasho, gurtus gia agus ahrar chierne ias a krias. Sin ba marab agus hanis bios bi a biog a maranoch, torstjach dochus, do finus rochi a maar ha sin bio bi iatsen kujoch bio mar in hetne, agus bianig sin je guye, dog ha krein koen ag an seo in an vasho, gymryd ffas gore on y diechen does gymryd gad moch on y dalach agus y hi ffein na'n Christau, agus gymryd y spyryd ffein gan trorach ag neu ulegrichgus y fain ha strwyhig uit ffein, agus sy'n gan grynawdd o'r ucht y chwyrym, ar sy'n cogwni yn cwtrymach y fysad y gianaf yn diw, gymryd sio gad dy holach agus gymryd gad y chym mai ar chwanya agus ffordd am ffwrdd na hilan yn siarad. Bianig iad fan sy'n y gwni am sy'n sgolchen, agus am sy'n homer yn blasio, agus cynnig a ie oegri dŵhich yn bla. Gymryd dwsa gan bianachig, an nynyd y nefi am sy'n hirna iasa, so chwld y cara sy'n y sirig, son e mahanys pechi na anamsyn. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Stewart. So, firstly, you will all be well versed on the conduct of the meetings, so I won't go into that. Everyone knows what the rules are now, and I'll just move on. In regards to declarations of interest, members must leave the chamber or end the call remotely, as you all know. Finally, a reminder that the meeting is now being live streamed and recorded, and a recording will be made available on the caller's website following the meeting. The budget item is made up of 6 parts, items 2A to 2F, which will be taken in the sequences as they appear on the agenda and are detailed in the budget folder, which has been shared on SharePoint. It is necessary to consider these together. Therefore, I would propose that the committee consider each report in turn and then come back to the recommendation of item 2A, which is the Budget and Council Tax 2023-2024 report. I am ruling items 2E and 2F strike 2 as urgent. So first item is just the declaration of interest. So members are asked to declare any interest they have on any items of the agenda. It would be helpful if members express why they are declaring an interest in the item concerned. Does anybody have any declarations of interest? No
declarations in the chamber, Chair.
Yeah, I can see. Right. Thanks, Derek. Thanks. Cheers. So item 2, finance. Budget and council tax setting 2023-24. 1A. This report details the budget and council tax setting for 23-24 and a forward strategy. I will ask the Chief Executive and the Chief Financial Officer to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. MacDonald and I are presenting this joint report to you on budget and council tax setting for next year. I will save the main points for the budget setting meeting of Policy and Resources Committee this afternoon, if that's in order. Otherwise, each of the service committees will be hearing quite a long presentation. So I will refer members of the committee to the key paragraphs. I will give some general advice, and then I will ask Mr. MacDonald to update because there has been a lot happening, of course, since this paper was written. The figures have changed. I have sent round some comments on the announcement yesterday from Scottish Government of 100 million, but that relates to the pay award, which you've been advised already that we hope to make or COSLA hopes to make on our behalf in respect of SJC employees. That does not, in my view, affect the budget recommendations in front of you today. I think through Policy and Resources Committee, through the seminars, through the Budget Board, you're all familiar with the basis on which this budget is prepared. There are key figures there in the report at 2.2. Note that the cash increase for core services amounts to around £700,000. There are comments on the IGB distribution, which I will refer to at Policy and Resources Committee. The capital funding is set out at paragraph 2.4 for your information. And critically, the key paragraph is perhaps 2.7 from our perspective. At the time of writing this report, and that hasn't changed, the CORLA is forecast to have just over 1 million in reserves to support future budgets at the end of the next financial year, in addition to the 3.5 million contingency or uncommitted reserves. With an underlying deficit of 3.7 million and the effects of inflation, the identification of recurring savings and the consideration of reasonable council tax increases is vital in maintaining services. Otherwise, we will have virtually no reserves at all. 2.8 indicates that we are passing on the ring-fenced funding to the IGB as we should, but we are also passing on a proportionate share of funding received towards the pay award. Not all councils are doing that. I've received yesterday expressions of appreciation from the IGB for that decision, but I think that is proportionate and fair to pass that on to the IGB in respect of our own employees. Just to reassure you finally, the business plans, there's a lot in front of you today at this committee. There's a lot of material. There's all the business plans, there's the fees and charges, there's everything else. So do take account of these documents, the risk registers, the business continuity plans. It all forms part of the budget strategy for next year. They've all been prepared in accordance with corporate strategy. Where there are any initial impact assessments have been carried out. If there are further impact assessments required, and there will be, these will be done and the results reported back to you if that requires any subsequent change. Before I ask Mr. MacDonald to advise if there's any further updates, I would refer you to the whole report. I won't go through it. You'll be relieved to know I've given you the key parts from the officer perspective. But in conclusion, this is a prudent budget and financial strategy. It means we can respond as effectively as possible, not as we would like, to significant real terms reductions in revenue funding. It is a privilege, actually, to be able to present a budget to you as officers with recourse to, with minimal service reductions, with minimal savings, and with no compulsory redundancies. I hope, but I fear that I will not be able to make that commitment in future years. But many councils in Scotland are not in this position, and the budget reflects the wishes of the Chamber, of course, and also all of our current policies on compulsory redundancies and, wherever possible, retention of levels of service. But it is use of reserves, including previously earmarked funds, which have prevented much more stringent reductions in services. The Chamber should not be in any doubt about that, and reserves, as has often been said, can only be used once. Finally, at 13.2, I would ask you to note there is an ongoing prospect of flat cash settlements. In an era of inflation, any inflation, but particularly high inflation, that is anything but flat cash, as we all know. And we have an underlying budget deficit. So work on the draft budget for 2024-25 will have to begin earlier than usual, I'm afraid to say. That will have to begin within the immediate period after conclusion of this budget. So finally, Chair, And I wouldn't give all this information at every service committee in case you're becoming worried. There's a lot of recommendations there, A to N. I refer you to these, but in essence, you're being asked to accept the settlement as set out in the finance circular, and that will be as amended, as it's amended. Agree the budget strategy, approve the business plans, note the risk registers. They're pretty, there's a lot of risks in them. Note the business continuity plans, critically approve the draft budgets for each of the services and departments, agree the delegated budget for the IGB, agree to increase the council tax by 5%. That's for Policy and Resources Committee this afternoon. And there are another important recommendations there, all of which are for Policy and Resources Committee, but those relating to the budgets for this committee are, of course, your business this morning. I'll ask Mr. MacDonald if there's any further update to the figures, and otherwise both of us are happy to take questions. Thank you, Chair.
There's no real further updates. The report includes two sums of additional funding, 194, which was omitted from the initial settlement, which was to do with teachers' pay in 21-22. The costs for that are already included in our budget, so it's additional income for us. And there's additional income of 657 to go towards health and social care, which was included in the, which will be included in the final settlement. So apart from that, everything else was reported to Policy and Resources 2 weeks ago.
Okay, right. Thanks, both of you. Does anybody have any questions for the gentleman? Anybody at all?
Chair, we have Councillor Gordon Murray has a question.
Yep, Councillor Murray. Yep, I'll have a look. Yep.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a member of your committee. I was just going back to the initial impact assessments. I believe from 12.2 there will be further work on these impact assessments, and it's a worry that we don't have all the information beforehand. But the Chief Executive has said that when the impact assessments come back, if it requires to have any subsequent change, what does that mean? Does that mean a change in the budget decision if the impact assessments come back with more information? Because we're setting the budget today, so how can we change the decision? What's the process in terms of impact assessments? Because otherwise, if they don't impact or influence our decisions today, they're pretty redundant to come back. But if there's a chance of changing decisions, I'd welcome that.
Who wants
Thank
to
you,
come
Chair.
back?
Happy to answer that. It's never possible to complete the full impact assessment process before the budget is set, because the settlement only comes to us effectively in the first week of January, and proposals are developed through the budget board as recommendations to the Corla to take forward. It's the initial impact assessments indicate where there are no issues which require further assessment, or where there may be issues which require further assessment, for example, for particular affected groups. That is always the case with the annual budget. The IIA, the initial impact assessment, takes full account of the equalities assessment and the Fair of Scotland assessment, but there may be other impacts for particular groups which require further assessment and may indeed require consultation. That has always been the position, and as I've said, it's not possible to complete that process before budgets are set. If there are any subsequent changes, these will be advised to the relevant committee.
Okay, thanks. No, do you want to come back at all, Gordon, or?
That's fine. I'm still not clear as to whether more details on the impact assessments would change any budget decisions, because I've had a look at the impact assessments and groups haven't been identified. So if groups are identified as having a greater impact, would it come back to committee to change the recommendations of the budget spend?
Yeah, Malcolm, does anyone want to come back on that?
Chair, I'm not
Yep.
seeing any further lights on in
No.
the chair or any hands up online.
And nobody wanted to, anyone who wanted to come back on Gordon's little point there? I mean,
If and as required, Chair.
okay. Right, okay, thanks. Right, thanks a lot. Right, we'll move on then. So we'll move on to B. So Service Business Plans 2023-2024. This report seeks approval of the Service Business Plans 23-24. Insofar as this committee's interests are concerned, the Education, Skills and Children's Services plans are at item 1B, J, K and L as part of the budget folder. The Director for Education, Skills and Children's Services will answer any questions of detail. Thank you. Are there any questions, or do you want to say something, Willie, first?
Chair, again, it's static in the chamber. I'm not seeing any lights on or hands
Okay,
up online.
right. Okay, we'll move on again then. So risk registers 23-24. This report seeks approval of the strategic and operational risk registers for 23-24. Insofar as this committee's interests are concerned, the Education, Skills and Children's Services plans risk registers are at items 1CJ, K and L as part of the budget folder. And the Director will answer any questions of detail. Does anybody have any questions, please? Doesn't look like it, no.
Again, there are no
Yeah.
lights on in the chamber, Chair.
Okay, we'll move on to item D then. Business Continuity Plans 23-24. Insofar as this committee's interests are concerned, items 1D, A to O are for noting. The Director for Education, Skills and Children's Services is available to answer any questions. Does any members have any questions?
Again,
No.
Chair, I'm not seeing any lights on in the chamber or any hands up.
Okie dokie. Right, we'll move on to item E. So draft budget book 23-24. Approval is sought of the draft budget book 23-24. Insofar as this committee is concerned, please refer to items 1E, Education, Skills and Children's Services plans at pages 26 to 35 as part of the budget book. The Director for Education, Skills and Children's Services plans is available to answer any questions. Does anybody have any questions, please?
Again, Chair, no lights on in the chamber and no hands up on Teams.
Okay, thanks. So we'll move on to F. Fees and charges 23-24. The schedule of rates and dues at caller harbours and piers 23-24, and a report by the Chief Officer of Assets and Infrastructure. Somebody will this speak?
Chair, again, no lights on these items are primarily for Transportation
Just for
and Infrastructure
Yeah.
Committee.
So just
for
leave
noting
these
for this committee's interests.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll just quickly go over item part 2, which is fees and charges for marine fuel 23-24 and municipal service fees and charges 23-24. Okie dokie. Right. So insofar as this committee's interests are concerned, items 2F to I01 and 2F2, 2F3 are for noting. Having considered these items, can we go back to the main report at item 2A? To conclude, the budget items and for the purpose of recording the minute with reference to items 1B, C, D, E and F, can I now confirm, insofar as this committee's interests are concerned, approval of item 1A, but item 1A, budget and council tax setting 23-24. Do I have approval, please?
Chair, the chamber's indicating approval.
Okay, right. Thanks a lot. So the next scheduled meeting of this committee will be on the 25th of April 2023. So thanks for your attendance, and once again, apologies for not being present in the chamber. Thank you very much. Cheers.